Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. Today is the 4th of September 2024 and these are the stories that we will be discussing during the course of the show. We'll begin with the elections that are happening, the legislative elections that are happening in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region in three phases on the 18th and the 25th of this month as well on the 1st of October. Now the Indian government is doing whatever it can before these elections begin in order to not only curb the right to vote of the Kashmiris but also deny them their due right to vote the way they want to. So different kind of pressure tactics are going on. People are being arrested, people are being subjugated to pressure or to torture one way or the other so that they do not vote the way they want to, because if they do, then of course there will be no BJP in the illegally occupied region. This and more will be discussed in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the day 333 of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Yes, today is day 333 of that very conflict that began on the 7th of October, despite the fact that still there is a ray of light in the form of the ceasefire deal that could conclude somewhere or the other, but there are very factors that are hindering this peace deal from happening, specifically from the Israeli side. Now, since the 6 captives were discovered dead in Gaza, there has been a huge hue and cry from the Israeli government that has been pointing on the Palestinians when the Palestinian leaders themselves say that it's not them who are behind them, and they're also saying that they want to look at the proper investigation and to see and to ascertain what really happened. In fact, these 6 were part of the first phase of the deal had it been confirmed or concluded between the two sides. Also, the barbarities continue, whether it be in the West Bank, whether it be in Gaza or whether it be in other places. The people's denial to their right of proper water, food, medicine also continues. So does the right to proper medical care. This and more will be discussed in our second segment. Then we are going to talk about the Pope Francis that has called for stronger interfaith ties to counter extremism and intolerance. He was on the first full day of his forward nation trip to the Asia Pacific region, and he of course met with one of the leaders there, and he talked about the need for interfaith harmony, the need for tolerance between religions in order to not only understand each other better but also stop this extremism that has been engulfing the world. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the elections under the Indian occupation. We've been joined by Dr. Asma Khuwaja, who is the Executive Director, CISS, IIOJK, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, online with us to discuss that. Dr. Sahiba, thank you very much to have joined us. Innocent Kashmiris, Dr. Sahiba, are being deprived of their voting rights for decades. This is not the first time, this won't be the last time, but of course these legislative elections that are happening after a bit of time are important for the people of the Held Valley. The last elections took place 10 years ago. The state of course has been under direct rule by Delhi since the dissolution of the assembly in 2018, and then happened the 5th of August 2019. In your point of view, what is the legality of these elections? Will the Kashmiris be allowed to vote this time in a manner that they deem is important to them?
See, as far as the legality of those elections is concerned, Kashmiris, what they want for last 77 years. Kashmiris want to use their right to vote to decide what future they want for their children, to decide that as per Radcliffe Award, which country they want to join, Pakistan or India. This is the actual demand of Kashmiris. So anything around it, considering or portraying if it has been portrayed as a substitute to right to self-determination and a plebiscite under UN supervision, that is wrong and illegal. But you can see that since Modi joined the power houses, and he is in power for last more than around 10 years. Since then, Kashmiris did not had any right to choose or to demonstrate their hatred, their disregard, their rejection of the policies of Mr. Modi. So right now, after 10 years, when those elections, and Modi has no other option but to conduct those elections as per the ruling of Supreme Court. So now Kashmiris, and in last Lok Sabha elections as well, Kashmiris considered, they thought that this opportunity provides them a space to show to the world that how that the policies of BJP under Mr. Modi are extremely rejected, disliked by the Kashmiri people, and that is why Kashmiris wanted to use their vote, because as you know, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a seized territory. The people are in quarantine for last 77 years, where India is not allowing any international media or organization to visit and see that how and what Kashmiris are feeling towards India's policies. So we have seen in Lok Sabha elections, and now I'm sure that we will see in the state assembly elections, where right to vote would be used to tell the international community and the world that how Kashmiris are how much Kashmiris are disturbed, and the policies of Mr. Modi are accepted for Kashmiris. It is the way, it is a way for catharsis for Kashmiri youth and individuals who are suffering from unprecedented, I would say, brutal actions of the government. You know, because India is now much lower than even on all international human rights indexes, on democratic indexes, only because one of the reason is India's policies in Kashmir. And this right to vote only provide Kashmiris an opportunity, an outlet to tell that how much those policies have negatively affected it. You know, in those elections, almost all candidates who are participating in these elections, for them, their basic demand is the reverse of the revocation of Article 370 from Indian Constitution. So whole premise of the election campaign and slogans of these elections is that Modi should reverse back his decision to revoke Article 370. So even if after 2019 till today, till 2024, people of Kashmir have not accepted, are unable to accept this dictator, this authoritarian decision of Mr. Modi, it means that they will never ever accept it. It is the same like they never accepted Indian subjugation and occupation of Kashmir even after 77 years. So this is what trend Kashmiris have demonstrated through the years, and they always be, and we have seen that neither BJP nor the proxies of BJP have any political constituency in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and lack of that political constituency is the result of BJP's inhuman policies of subjugation, nothing else.
All right, Dr. Asma, I'd also like to, understand. My next question is two-pronged. My first part of the question regards the measures that are being taken before these elections. Hundreds of arrests are being made. Hundreds of paramilitary forces are being added to the current forces in the Indian held valley, and of course then the way the Indian government is moving forward is nothing short of fascism. My first part of the question is, why is India so afraid of the Kashmiri people that it is arresting hundreds of people and installing more and more paramilitary troops? And secondly, where are the human rights champions when it comes to important phases in India such as these elections? Why aren't they not raising a hue and cry?
It is ironic that despite the fact that 900,000 this occupying forces of Indian Army are present in Jammu and Kashmir, still Indian government felt the need to deploy almost 298-300 military companies to conduct free and fair elections, and this made the proportion of one soldier for 10 people, and this is almost among the highest numbers or highest militarized region of the world. This makes Kashmir. And then, but another important thing to understand is that those new 300 companies have been deployed only in Kashmir Valley, which makes the situation worse. They have not been deployed in Ladakh or Jammu region, but only in Kashmir Valley. So this shows that how much what Indian government is thinking and how much free and fair elections they want to conduct. Here it is again important to refer that when we see the history, whenever those new forces under the banner of elections have been deployed in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they never returned back. So they always they stayed there. So now under this premise, actually India has changed the number of the deployment of their military forces in this region. Then international human rights agencies, international human rights organizations, international organization which monitor democracy, they are quiet. They are not even highlighting any this, and you see, I wonder where international election observers are. So if I ask you that if among unarmed civilian people, one person has lots of ammunition, arms, and armaments, and is completely under all the so-called protection of weapons, then who would be considered coward and afraid of rest of the people? Definitely, an unarmed civilian would not be considered as being afraid, but those who are under the shadows of who have possession of so many guns and arms and armament. So that is why Indian army is afraid. Indian government is afraid because they know they are trying to protect lies. They are trying to protect injustice. They are trying to portray a false picture to the international community. They are claiming a region which they themselves know that region doesn't belong to them. This is not their area. This is the region of indigenous Kashmiri population. It does not belong to India. So that is why they are afraid of truth. As I always say, that truth is powerful and truth is long lasting. It is always at the end of the day.
All right, Dr. Asma, I'd also like to understand, amongst the measures that the Indian government has taken recently before these legislative elections begin, they have increased or given more powers to the Lieutenant Governor, who is nominated by Delhi, to limit the authority of the next elected government. Do you feel that the Modi government wants to maintain central control because it knows already the outcome of these elections?
Yeah, I have no doubt about it, because the increase in the power of governor, that has made actually the state assembly of illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir not more than a municipal committee. So they don't have any power, and this shows that why Modi regime was afraid of conducting elections for last 10 years in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and when the Supreme Court has ordered them to conduct those elections, they are thinking and they are planning that how to go around them. So in order to conduct the election and to make the results of those elections ineffective, not actually relevant to the situation of Kashmir, they have increased the powers of the Governor General. And I don't know how and why, with those authoritarian activities, what they want to achieve in Kashmir, which they are unable to achieve for last 10 years. They have the Kashmir in illegally Indian occupied Kashmir is facing economic downfall. The Indian occupied forces have attacked the livelihood of Kashmiri people as their strategy of collective punishment. They have burned the orchards. Indian government has reduced the duty on the import of apples, and this is a big blow to the apple cultivation and the use of apple to earn money by Kashmiri people.
All right, Dr. Asma, I'd like to understand the reaction that have come from the opposition parties as well. Mehbooba Mufti calls this, giving more powers to a Lieutenant Governor as reducing the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir as a municipality. Omar Abdullah says the office has been downgraded to a powerless rubber stamp. The Congress condemns it as the mother of democracy. Will these comments have any effect whatsoever on all the measures that the government is currently taking before the legislative elections in the Indian Hill Valley?
Unfortunately, Modi and his followers, the BJP regime, they are unable to understand. They did not, or they don't want to understand the reasons and causes behind their defeat in these latest elections in Lok Sabha elections in India. They want to carry on with their same policies which led to their defeat. This is really unfortunate. So whatever those opposition parties have said, unfortunately, that is not affecting BJP's hierarchy, because BJP, to their radical Hindu vote bank, they want to use Kashmir, they want to use revocation of Article 370 as a feather in the cap of BJP, and that is why those atrocities, all those postures of aggression and aggressiveness, all them, they want to carry on with them. That is why whatever those opposition parties are saying, that has no importance for BJP decision makers or the kitchen cabinet of Mr. Modi. And you see, I would say that what Mr. J. Shankar recently, the External Affairs Minister of India, has stated, that also comes from that same position of weakness in which Modi regime is being trapped right now after losing the Lok Sabha elections, being unable to win even single largest state party with the majority. Whatever Mr. Jaishankar said, that looks like an effort to convince the radical vote bank, the extremists in India, the Hindus, that BJP is not afraid of carrying on their radical extremist agenda, which actually is a dangerous, I would say, a dangerous game.
About Dr. Asma, when you talk about this extremist radical agenda, there are also the sane elements within India as well, and most of the sane elements, a lot of those sane elements belong to the journalistic community as well, and their voices are also being muted as we speak. The Modi government has banned all political and social gatherings in the Indian Hill Valley, and they have also suppressed all the voices that are coming from Kashmir, specifically those of the journalists who are either being incarcerated or their voices muted one way or the other. Until when, in your point of view, will the Modi government continue to restrict the freedom of expression?
Freedom, see, the one who creates web of lies, he always is afraid of freedom of speech. He is always afraid of freedom to share one's opinion. And we know that Modi's policies since day one, Modi doesn't support freedom of speech. BJP is against freedom of speech, and that is why they have created all those disinfo labs, which are working to create a false image of BJP and of India under BJP, and that is all which brought bad name to BJP government if they realize. So freedom of speech, no, there is no such thing as freedom exists in illegally Indian occupied Kashmir, where people, they don't talk. I was watching a documentary of international news agency, and they were saying that people in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they are even afraid to talk to each other and share that which party they are going to vote. So what they want, or what they actually want for themselves and their region, that would only be shown through votes. So this is the height of fear, height of mistrust in Modi regime's policies have inculcated in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The famous newspaper Kashmir Times. You see when you see when you want to see what is happening in Kashmir and you look for the free and fair news agencies or newspaper coming from illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So unfortunately, you cannot even find one single newspaper which is coming from or publishing from Srinagar without the censorship of Indian government and Indian military. So this is the sad situation, and people there are they are even afraid of sharing their opinion on through social media, and that is why Kashmir is the region which faced the social media or internet shutdowns and the highest number in the world. So this happened during past 5 years. So Modi regime they think that if the voices of Kashmiris are invisible and inaudible, this makes Modi popular, and this makes Modi's or Modi regime's narrative more strengthened.
Last question, Dr. Asma, last question. I want a short answer. The different measures that have also been taken post 5th of August 2019, the India Delimitation Commission carving out new electoral constituencies, demographic changes to disenfranchise the Kashmiris, whether it be domicile certificates that are issued, whether it be temporary residence that is given, and then these temporary residents are also given voting rights. Do you feel measures such as these are going to continue within the Indian Held Valley so that the due right to the Kashmiri people is not given?
Right after the revocation of Article 370 in 2019, and in the a website of Indian government stated Jammu and Kashmir, Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir as Hindu majority region. So this one statement reflects upon the mindset or the policy goals or objectives of Modi regime, what they want to achieve in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and they want to dilute the Kashmiri identity of Kashmiri people. They want to convert Kashmir, a Muslim majority Kashmir into a Hindu majority region. That is why one of their ministers, he stated that there are 50,000 Hindu temples in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That is why maybe they claimed that Sharda Devi temple is a Hindu temple and actually it is a Buddhist temple. So all those those efforts to rewrite the history, past and present, that shows that Modi regime has this in their agenda, has this policy goal in front of them, that they will dilute the Kashmiri identity of Kashmir Muslim majority Kashmir region. But I would say, as per international law, as per international humanitarian law, as per the law of rights to indigenous people, that all what Modi regime is doing, that is a crime, and that should not happen.
Yes, Dr. Asma, thank you, Dr. Asma. We are a bit short of time, and thank you very much to have given us the opportunity to discuss the legislative elections in the Indian Held Valley and all the preemptive measures that the Indian government is doing or taking in order to deny the right to properly vote to the people of the Indian Held Valley. And of course, this is just a list in all the different tactics that the Indian government is doing to deny the right to the people of the Held Valley also to live their life as normal human beings. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma Shakir Khuwaja Sahiba, to have joined us. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Israel-Palestine conflict that has now entered its 333rd day. Who would have thought when it began on the 7th of October last year that this conflict would continue and rage to this day? As you can see in the window as well, the brutalities by the Israelis continue as we speak. The number of casualties continues to increase. Around 40,800 plus people have been killed since this conflict began on the 7th of October. Around 94,291 have been injured, and this does not include those who are under the rubble, who we do not even know the exact numbers. Some people say it's 10,000, some people say it might be 50,000 or even more, which puts this as one of the gravest conflicts that the world has seen in this century. Israeli military's assault also continues across the occupied West Bank. This is now in its 8th day. At least 33 Palestinians have been killed and 130 have been wounded since last Wednesday. The vast majority is in the Jenin area of the West Bank. At least 6 Palestinians have also been killed in an attack on the Nama college where people had been sheltering. Israeli forces also continue to pound Gaza. They have killed at least 43 people over the past year and have wounded 5 children in a hospital in the central Deir al-Balah shortly after a pause in fighting for polio vaccination that ended on Tuesday. Speaking of polio vaccination, around 187,000 children in Gaza have been vaccinated against the dastardly disease that has engulfed some of the children in Gaza as well. Israeli forces also continue, so does the drive for some kind of a peace deal between the two sides. The US is trying, but there are allegations and counter allegations from the Israeli side and from certain other countries that are mediating in between as well. There seems to be a counter effort to not go forward with this ceasefire deal. To discuss that and more, we've been joined by Ambassador Shahid Mansoor Gul Kiani. He's a former ambassador and a foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Ambassador Shahid Mansoor Gul Kiani sahab, to have joined us. No, the US Justice Department, sir, has charged 6 Hamas leaders, including the chief Yahya Sinwar, in connection with this October 7 attacks on Israel. The complaint names 6 defendants, 3 of whom are now deceased. The department was doing this since quite some time, but it decided to go public with the charges after Ismail Hania's death. The view, of course, is challenged by much of the world and many other countries as well. Does the US's decision to charge Hamas's top leaders hurt its role as a mediator in the ongoing conflict? And do you feel there is going to be any kind of peace deal?
You see, I'm not surprised. If you look at the statement, these are, in Israel or like in any part of the world, there are dual nationals. Now, these people were US nationals also. Now, what we can see is the active pro-Israeli lobby working in the United States and forcing the United States, like I tell you, the Israeli government, also part and parcel of this thing, that you see, focus on penalizing the Hamas leadership for the killing of the Israeli citizens who were also US citizens, so that the attention from the penalizing or focusing on the killing of more than 40,000 Palestinians, of which 18,000 were children. You see, when I look at the polio campaign, meaning I'm surprised. Polio campaign, yes, it's important and it should be carried on. More important are the lives of these people. And they say that not a single building in Gaza is intact. So here the focus is during this is a US presidential campaign in which both the candidates are under scrutiny, under pressure from the pro-Israeli lobbies because they have money. Without money, these presidential campaigns cannot run. So the focus is on the US government also, because US government is the Democrat government and the vice president is the presidential campaign, to focus and tell them, yes, keep the focus, keep on saying to the world that these are US citizens and we are a responsible country. You will take the Gaza leadership to task. And then when you do this, and I just want to give you an example. Therefore, yesterday they showed 1 or 2 Israelis, those who were hostage in Gaza, their funeral were taking place. The whole city was there to pay tributes to the Israeli who had died in Gaza. What about these 40,000? So keep the focus here. Double standards, double diplomacy. This is what the world is. Another important thing is the Palestinian Authority in Israel. What are they doing? The Palestinians are divided, so the enemies and the adversaries are taking advantage of it.
And of course, you can see, Ambassador Shahid, the way they are taking advantage is in the brutal murders of these people. And you yourself have talked about the casualties, 40,819 people. And this is just in Gaza. If you talk about the West Bank, more than 680 people have been killed so far in the West Bank. And this continues with Jenin, with other parts of the West Bank also now under the garb of the Israeli fire. And this is a deliberate tactic and whether they call it or not, we need to call it as ethnic cleansing. We need to call it as war against humanity, crimes against humanity. We need to call it as brutal murders that defy all human rights laws, and all the human rights champions that have sided with the murder of or the death of 1, 2, 5 or 10 people are not siding, as you very ably have also talked about, these 40,000 plus. And I think when the war ends, and if inshallah it ends soon, we will see that the number of casualties is much more, if not 50, must be around 100,000 people who have been killed so far when you look at this. You were talking about the United Nations, and of course you were right, the United Nations and Guterres has called on Israel to immediately end its operation in the occupied West Bank and strongly condemn the loss of lives. And also EU policy chief Joseph Borrell says Israel's major military incursion into the occupied West Bank must not be the premise of a war extension into from Gaza. You yourself have alluded to mere statements happening from important leaders and not action. But don't you also feel that the hands of such important organizations are tied, because members of these organizations are also siding with Israel?
I would just, you're so right, Mr. But another Khalid, you see, the British government today announced they are contemplating, they're thinking of revoking the licenses to allow the arms export to Israel. Thinking means contemplating. If you recall that the former British Prime Minister, traveled in a C-130 to Israel, and his C-130 was full of the arms. They never even thought for a moment that, okay, Hamas may have committed a blunder. I agree, getting into Israel. And then I was thinking, if they had gone inside, they should have attacked some military installation, damaged the military installation, but they didn't do. Took away people. Now, two wrong never make one right. They were there. They should have asked Israel to restrain, because these countries exactly know the power, the military power Israel has to overrun these small, what you call areas, and which have no access, nothing at all. All their seas are also occupied, or their Israeli Navy is there. So they didn't do that. They never, and they're still thinking. All the Western countries, double standards. I can just invite your attention. When these the minorities like Christians in southern Sudan and Timor-Leste were being under the what you call, one was the Muslim rulers in Sudan, and here were the Muslim rulers in Indonesia. When these people were in a way suffering or were being persecuted, they were the United Nations and the other Western countries were the first one to raise their voices in the United Nations and then force these countries to allow them to secede. Here, nobody's asking for secession, but here, when is this madness going to end? I tell you very frankly, meaning the accountability. The United Nations office in Geneva, where these big countries have their offices, I don't hear any severe condemnation of what Israelis are doing. And in Israel also, another very interesting thing, people are on the road condemning what's happening. They are not saying don't kill the Palestinians. What they're saying, they end the war, because they want their hostages which are in Gaza to come back. Simple mathematics.
Ambassador Shahid, I'd like to refer you, now that you talk of protests. We know that protests are going on in Tel Aviv. We know that protests are also going on in universities in the US now that the academic year has restarted. we all remember the huge protests that happened a couple of months back and how the police reacted also in the United States to curb their voices. But what I want to understand is, through these protests in Israel, through these protests in the US, will there be some kind of pressure on the powers that be to end this or to conclude this peace deal, or will this be business as usual?
The Israeli society is divided. If you have read that, one is on what is happening is it's a very weak government in Israel. Netanyahu had a problem with the judiciary, that has not ended. He's weak, his government is weak, but he's taking advantage. If the war prolongs, he continues to remain in power. The day, believe it or not, the war ends, there will be a call for his removal from the party. And the extreme right people, they are just waiting in the wings to they will hold elections and they occupy the seat. Nobody's bothered about the people in the streets. Those people are crying out because they say this stalemate does not give no advantage to the people of Israel, whose kith and kin are hostages in Gaza. So this is something, and the Western countries, except for lip service, they are not doing anything else. It is pathetic. And allow me to say something. Countries who matter, countries who have pressure, countries, for example, Jordan and Egypt should have used their, they have common borders. You should have pressurized Israel to stop this war. Or the countries in the Gulf who have money, who have power of energy, to have put pressure on them. But I don't see.
I'd like to interrupt you here, Ambassador Shahid. I'd also like to add that Jordan and Kuwait have joined a list of Arab countries defending Egypt against Israel's prime minister's accusations that Cairo is smuggling weapons to Hamas. Jordan's foreign ministry said the allegations were baseless and intended to obstruct the ongoing ceasefire negotiations, of which Egypt is a key mediator, and you know that as well. Other important countries also, the Gulf Cooperation Council has also condemned the statements by Netanyahu, who has instead insisted on a continued Israeli presence at a corridor along the Gaza-Egypt border. What do you make of this development as well? Is it also not a way to stall the ongoing peace negotiations or to end them one way or the other?
I tell you, Khalid, too little too late. If these arms are being smuggled and given to them at this stage, when you see so many people in Gaza have died, so too little too late. If you ask people in Gaza...
That's what I'm trying to say. This is not happening, and that is why there's a lot of countries that are saying that all these accusations that Netanyahu is pointing towards Egypt are baseless. But what I'm trying to understand is the gist of it all. Isn't he trying to kind of divert attention from the main agenda, that is moving towards a ceasefire and then towards a two-state solution? In fact, Israel doesn't even believe in a two-state solution anymore. If we understand its former ambassadors, one of those has talked about a one-state solution and a greater Israel as well, something that we all know and we have all discussed in the past as well. But what I'm trying to understand is, what is the outcome of all these talks on the ceasefire deal? Is it eventually one day going to happen?
I doubt it very much. In the near future, I doubt it very much. If you look at the shattered diplomacy of these, countries, the Israeli foreign minister or prime minister went to Egypt a number of times. The Qatar Qatar is playing a very positive role in bringing these two countries together. Talks have taken place in Qatar and in Cairo, but to no avail, because I just do not see. I don't think there is the desired pressure on Israel to stop the war, to have a ceasefire. That is something, and my own understanding is the Western countries, especially the United States, is not putting the desired pressure on Israel to stop the war. You talk about two-state solution. I have all my doubts this is ever going to happen.
All right. Also, Ambassador Shahid, you talked about the United Kingdom and this, suspension of a part of their arms supply sale to Israel. It says it will suspend 30 out of 350 arms export licenses to Israel, citing a clear risk. Now, the UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, who talks very regularly on the atrocities that are being committed by Israel in Palestine, says that there was recognition among states that Israel was committing a series of international crimes. There is a huge pressure, she says, on the UK and in other countries not to be complicit in these. Former British Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn also says that the British decision to partially suspend weapons shows the British Foreign Secretary's cognizance of human rights abuses in Gaza. But at the same time, a lot of organizations are saying that this is not enough, more needs to be done. What are the implications of decisions such as these within the United Kingdom and outside of the United Kingdom?
This is just a symbolic, appealing to the public in the United Kingdom, where if you recall, in the last few months, there was a lot of demonstrations in the United Kingdom against this war, against Israelis' policies. Do you think Israel is depending on the British weapons to continue with the war? I doubt it very much. Just a symbolic thing what they are saying. There are countries from which, Israel itself is a very large manufacturer of weapons. Tell you, one of the largest manufacturer of weapons, state-of-the-art but it needs small weapons also. And this country has other avenues to other countries to bring weapons in there. So Britain doesn't matter. And look at the policy they are thinking. You should stop it. Announce that we have stopped it. Finished. No weapons will be sent. And the other thing would be, weapon or no weapon, use your muscle as a Western country, to put pressure on Israel now that please stop this war. It is enough. Enough is enough now. And another thing also, the Gaza, the leadership also should be told to stop this thing, end this war, sit down together, end this war, because the people in Gaza, again, want to tell you, Khalid, were never consulted about this war. So they are the ones who have suffered all along. They continue to suffer. I don't know how they sleep when all the whole night they bomb, they kill, every day they kill. But it has not become a news now. Everybody knows the news will be when the war ends. Right. Now,
Shahid Saab, I'd like to also understand the implications of war such as these. We've already talked in the past about how Islamophobia is on the rise as a result of this conflict between Israel and Palestine. But there are glaring examples of hate crimes being committed in the United States of America. This lady, 42-year-old lady who's been formally indicted by a grand jury in Texas for an attempted drowning of a 3-year-old Palestinian girl, of all people, of a 3-year-old Palestinian girl, and she also tried to drown her brother. Then in late November, 3 Palestinian men in their early 20s were shot near a university campus in Vermont in the US. A month earlier, a 6-year-old Palestinian American boy was stabbed to death in Illinois. Do you feel that the effects of wars such as what is happening in Palestine are going to be long lasting and for decades to come, in the form of Islamophobia, in the forms of racial crimes and crimes against Islam and Muslims?
Most of the Muslims, a brute majority of the Muslims all over the world are peaceful citizens, wherever they are. But there are fringe, you see, people living on the fringes who consider that they want to take the law in their own hands because the government is not doing anything. It is a duty all over the world, including in Pakistan and United States and other places, where it is a duty of the government to ensure, educate the people, first of all, educate. I don't see any such condemnation in any of these Western channels where they say that, look, most of the Muslims are peaceful citizens. Let's not blame them and let's not penalize them. Let's not, target these Muslims and smaller children also. But and if you look at the election campaign in the United States, which I tell you is most important, I don't see any condemnation of this war. Only the lip service, just, oh yes, we should, if you look at the Democrat lady who's the presidential candidate, she talked about in an interview, she said that, I'm very sorry about the killing of these of the Palestinians in Gaza, but the military assistance to Israel will continue. So what do you do? Meaning, what are you trying to tell the world? I would have thought they would say that okay, enough is enough. So many people have died. We are now to stop the weapon
I
supply.
totally agree with you, Ambassador Shahid Masroor Kiani Sahab. Enough is enough. I think we need to pressurize the West, or the US also needs to understand, so do other global players, that enough is enough. As you yourself have said, almost 11 months have passed since this war, this conflict began, and too many lives have been lost, too many infrastructure has been destroyed, and many people have been affected by this war for no reason, or for no harm that they have done. The fact is that this continues because of the hegemonic designs of certain people, of certain administrations, that this needs to end. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us and to have talked to us about day 333 of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let's come to our last story, and that concerns Pope Francis, who has appealed on ending extremism as he has launched his Asia Pacific tour. He appealed today for religious unity to counter extremism and intolerance as the longest tour of his papacy got into full swing in Indonesia. On this first full day of the four-nation trip, the point of zero on the role that all faiths can play on flashpoint security issues. He talked about fostering a peaceful and fruitful harmony that ensures peace. I think that's very important, a very important message in the current wake of all that is happening across the world, and leaders such as Pope Francis could maybe play a role in this regard. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. See you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.